All right, I've been having some technical issues here with regarding the live stream, so hopefully this will work this time. And it seems to be working. Hooray, hooray. Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Cioffi here in the second of two live streams that we are doing today, Sunday. We are dealing, of course, with Tropical Storm Maria on this one. We are already just did one for Hurricane Jose with the two systems going on at the same time. It just seemed easier to put it on two separate live streams. You might be interested in either one, so you can watch them separately, or you might be interested in both, in which case you can just go to the video library on the YouTube channel and go right ahead and do that. So this is going to be all Maria with a minimal amount of Jose. Again, just did the live stream for Jose. You can go take a look at that on the video library. Okay, so as Jose correctly points out, it's a very rough day in the weather department, and we have on board now what looks like could be the next major hurricane in Hurricane Maria. Right now, a tropical storm, top winds satellite estimate of 65 miles an hour. It continues to become better organized. It has really changed in terms of what we had just a day and a half ago, which was a disorganized tropical wave, and now we have a very strong tropical storm that's beginning to look like a minimal hurricane is about to take hold. And we have a very, very well-defined core near the center of circulation. It looks like the center is right underneath that core. I'm not seeing any evidence of shear at all. There's very good outflow. Water temperatures east of the islands in the middle to upper 80s, and that water was, because the warm water level at that in that part of the world goes fairly deep. Upwelling has a minimal impact. We had two major hurricanes go by there in the last 2 weeks, and hardly impacted the water temperature at all. So we are going to assume that these conditions are going to hold. Looks like the models say they will. So this will become a hurricane, might be a hurricane as early as later this afternoon or this evening, and it might even be a major hurricane during the day Monday. Conditions are actually favorable for rapid strengthening, so we might see, like we saw in Irma and in Jose, one of these periods where the pressure and Harvey, where the pressure just drops off the wall at 1 to 2 millibars an hour for hours and hours on end. We could see that get underway at some point. And the very sad thing here, of course, is the fact that a number of the northern Leeward Islands that were decimated beyond recognition because of Irma, and then got a glancing blow a couple of days later with Jose, now may be dealing with their third major hurricane in less than 2 weeks, and this one is likely to pass over those same islands. This is really, really just horrible, and it's critical. A lot of people that are there, whole islands have been evacuated. Barbuda, there isn't a single human being on the island of Barbuda for the first time in 300 years. I mean, that's just incredible. Right now, we've got Maria. The bow tie-shaped island here on the satellite is Guadeloupe, and then you have, of course, St. Martin, St. Kitts, St. Eustatius, and those islands all under hurricane watch right now. And watches extend all the way down to the south to St. Lucia, Antigua, Anguilla, et cetera, all under a watch of some kind or another. And this is all going to probably get upgraded to warnings at some point, maybe later today, as we see Maria getting closer and closer to the islands. It's already west of 55 west. And the western edge of the cloud wall is now almost to 60 west to the island of Barbados, which is right here. Okay, so even Barbados is probably going to experience some sort of tropical storm conditions out of this as this moves right along. All right, so let me say good morning to everybody collectively. And most of you were on the last live stream. I see you're on this live stream. So I'm going to just keep going, and then I'll come back and we'll address your questions. Regal Racer, if you're on here, thank you for hitting the super chat last night. I missed you because you did it right after I got offline And then I came back an hour later to check a few things and noticed that you had hit the super chat, and that was very generous of you, and I appreciate it very much. Going to have a cigar for myself maybe after this is done. All right, so here's Maria on the satellite, and we're going to take a look now at what the Hurricane Center is saying about it with respect to its forecast. It's been a pretty straightforward forecast here because of what we have in the upper layers of the atmosphere. This strong upper ridge to the north is pretty much steering this on a west or west-northwest course. So we have the Hurricane Center having it becoming a hurricane rather quickly, and then crossing over the Leeward Islands during the day on Monday. By Tuesday morning, well, later Monday night into Tuesday morning, and by Wednesday morning, it's making its run toward Puerto Rico as a major hurricane. So the Hurricane Center has this becoming a major hurricane in the next 48 hours. And they even indicated in their discussion, by the way, that the idea that this could strengthen rapidly is a pretty real one. So they do acknowledge that even though their official forecast brings it up to Category 3 and 125 miles an hour, they do acknowledge that this could certainly be much stronger than that, and it would not surprise them if it does turn out that way. So from major hurricane through the Virgin Islands and then Puerto Rico, want to pay special attention to the Virgin Islands because many of those islands were hit very, very hard by Irma. St. Thomas in particular. I had someone from St. Thomas, I hope you're watching this morning, message me to let them know that they have very little in the way of communications, and many people have very little of anything else because many folks have lost everything. And now they're facing a major hurricane, and this might be one of the few ways that they're getting information. So it's very important if you're watching from the islands there to be sure to share whatever you find with regards to weather coverage, so that everybody's at least has some sort of at least somewhat in the know, given the situation that you're in. The track from the Hurricane Center takes this as a major hurricane right over Puerto Rico, and then over the Dominican Republic, and then after that we don't know. It looks like that Maria's ultimate track in the longer range is going to hinge on Jose's track, just like Jose's track has been really much hinged on what happened with the remnants of Irma, as we explained in our prior video, that it is amazing how Irma has really linked, or is really linked to Jose and to Maria, indirectly to Maria, but it's Irma's leftover trough that's having impact on this forecast that for Jose, which has changed, and to some degree, and it's Jose's track that is going to have an impact on Maria down the road. So we'll look at the Hurricane Center's hurricane track model guidance at this point. And we'll take a look at what the track models do, and they are fairly uniform here in terms of their view of what is going to happen here going forward. And let me just trying to grab this little circle here. There we go. All the track models take it over the northern leewards, over the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. A few of them kind of skim it right along the north coast of Puerto Rico, and then it becomes very, very close to the Dominican Republic. So that the ultimate track here is going to be faced with the same issue that was faced with Irma, is that whether we're going to have these adjustments to the south and west as we move along. Is the ridge going to be a bigger player and force this hurricane, soon-to-be hurricane, to track further south and west than modeled? We've seen subtle shifts in the model tracks south and west over the last couple of days. This, I think, increases the possibility that the islands are going to experience another major hurricane. So we're going to watch this very, very closely. Nothing at this point, by the way, is imminent, but it certainly looks like the threat level has increased and increased substantially in some areas. Let me just bring back the map with the Hurricane Center's forecast, because I just want to at least show where we have some hurricane watches up, because if you're not getting the information, and this is the only way, it's good that you have it. So in the yellow, and I'll go over the islands with you in a second, but the yellow indicates tropical storm watches. The pink area are the hurricane watches. And right now for the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and the Dominican Republic, we do not have any kind of watches up. We do have watches up for the Leeward Islands. We do have tropical storm watches up for the southernmost Leewards and maybe the northern Windward Islands, including the island of Barbados. So I'll just go over with you from the Hurricane Center's 8 a.m. advisory, and we will hope that at least I'll give you a time on it, so this way you'll know that it will change at some point. So this is what we have so far. The government of France has issued a hurricane watch for Saint Martin and for Saint Bartholomew. We have watches up, hurricane watches up for Antigua, Barbuda, St. Kitts, Nevis, Montserrat, Guadeloupe, Dominica, Saba, Saint Eustatius, Saint Martin, the French side, Saint Martin, the Dutch side, and Anguilla. Okay, a tropical storm watch for St. Lucia, Martinique, Barbados, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines. All right, so that covers it with respect to, again, this was as of 8 a.m. Atlantic Standard Time on Sunday, September 17th. So be advised, if you are listening to this later in the day on Sunday or Sunday night, that some of these watches may have been changed to warnings, and additional hurricane and or tropical storm watches and warnings may have gone up. So it will have later streams today. We'll be sure to update it. And we'll also be doing it separately again later with regards to keeping Jose and Maria as two separate streams so that there's no confusion. So let me just take you through what the models are doing with this, because, this is, again, really, from a meteorological standpoint, it's just been kind of a marvel to watch all this play out. This is certainly turning into quite the hurricane season indeed. And, by the way, we're not as active as it has been. We're still, we're not at the same pace of 2005, which was even at a more vicious active pace with respect to that. So let me just set this up really fast. We'll go to the Western Atlantic region, which will be very useful here. And we will begin with the GFS. We're going to, toward the end, since we're going to have the new NAM, we may have some of the new NAM out, so I'll be able to at least take a look at, I'll look at Jose briefly. But here is on the GFS, Maria is, let me make sure I got the right one, because it keeps defaulting to a run from a day or two ago. And now we have the correct run. So you can see Maria here in the lower right corner, the Leeward Islands right in its sights. And the model takes it, on a west-northwest course over the northern Leeward Islands. So over not only all the islands that Irma went over, but a few others, and then continues it on a west-northwest course over the Virgin Islands, and it takes it right over the north shore of Puerto Rico, then skims the north coast of the Dominican Republic, but just offshore barely. And again, the strength of the ridge to the north is going to be key. Now we're into next Friday night, into early Saturday morning. So now we are at Saturday morning. So that is the track for the next 6 days. The track for the next 6 days. And I think even though the variation is going to get wider as you go over through time, certainly I think the first 2 or 3 days of this look fairly firm to me in terms of what the track is. The models seem to be pretty tight on that. I'll show you the European model view of this. because it is fairly similar. We'll go back now. I only have, with the European, we only have the 24-hour increments. So we're starting with, this is the, let me just get to the correct run here. So we're starting with Saturday evening here. Or we should start with Saturday evening. Let me get to that 0. 24, 0. There we go. So this is Saturday evening. You can see Jose to the north, well to the north and west, and not having any impact on this right now. Maria right there east of the Leewards. And this is where it's supposed to be by this evening, passing north of Barbados, then strengthening as a hurricane moving over the Leeward Islands. Now, the European is a little further south than the GFS in terms of its track. It actually takes it just south of the Virgin Islands and just south of Puerto Rico on its track, but then over the eastern part of the Dominican Republic. So it looks like the European is a little further south in the early stages here, and then as we get out toward day 5, it begins to turn to the north because it might be responding to a trough that's going to be produced by Jose, which the European, by the way, kept much closer to the coast and looped it around. So it's that Jose creates a weakness in the trough in that instance. So we have then Maria clearing the north coast, eventually clearing off the Dominican Republic, moving back out into the open waters of the Atlantic and heading into the southeastern Bahamas, which is where it is sitting at day 7, which is Saturday evening, with Jose at the very top, creating a weakness in the upper air pattern. And this is where we're going to have to deal with the subtleties of the upper air pattern in order to figure out Maria's ultimate track. Looking at the structure here of the upper ridge, you've got this big upper high that's sitting out in the Atlantic, the Bermuda high, Jose in between that and another part of that high. This is, we've been talking about Jose having punched through the ridge, but down where Maria is, the ridge is very, very strong. There's a bit of a weakness that's northeast of the Leeward Islands, and that's probably going to mean for that motion to turn more to the west-northwest. But the European says that the ridge is going to be a little stronger than modeled, perhaps, and holding it more to a westerly course and taking it a little further to the south. So that will change impacts for some islands here if that's the case. And then very close to the south coast of Puerto Rico, the ridge to the north is pretty clear between Bermuda and Maria. Then as we move into Friday, you start to get a little bit more of a turn to the north, and it brings it over the Dominican Republic. Then back out over the open waters. You still have that ridge in the Atlantic. Just see that little nose that points to the northeastern Bahamas, kind of keeps it on that west-northwest course. And then it begins to respond to the trough that's created by what's left of Jose. So ultimately, the longer-term view of Maria beyond the 5th day, and again, as I've said many times, after you get beyond day 5 and 6, you start to look at these things in terms of the models as, they can start to do really what I call squirrely things or things that are a little bit on the wild side from run to run. So you want to use them with, look at them with a huge grain of salt. But I think the ultimate fate of Maria is going to lie on Jose, and whether it's still lingering around, creating a weakness in the ridge. If that is the case, it may want to turn northward up toward the eastern seaboard. If Jose is on the other hand winds up getting kicked out to sea, we will have a stronger ridge in the east, and that might drive Maria on a more westerly track. So I think those possibilities are still very much on the table. In whichever direction it winds up is going to ultimately depend probably on Jose itself. And here's the wider view of the upper air pattern that we're talking about. We'll just back it up a bit here so you can see it all in play. And just big ridge here in the eastern part of the United States. You have the trough, weak troughing of what's left of Irma that pulls up Jose, But if it weren't for that, we would have this huge ridge here in the eastern part of the United States, deep trough out in the west, and in fact, that big upper high in the east builds across the Great Lakes into the northeast, and you can see Maria's track again responding to the weakness left over by Jose until the ridge rebuilds, until it's completely gone. The only mechanism that can take Jose out to sea, by the way, it looks like it's already bypassed. It will have already bypassed Jose on two instances, but this is later in the week. In the jet stream, this trough that's moving into Labrador looks like it misses Jose completely now, and all the models seem to show this. The European may have been the first to sniff it out, but that's going to be very important in terms of the long term with regards to Maria. Again, I do want to emphasize that the risk I think there's a very good chance that Maria is going to become the season's fourth major hurricane. So for those of you who are in the islands, just please be aware of that. This is, the ingredients are definitely here for this to strengthen rapidly. Another look here on the satellite, just to show you that it is looking better organized during the morning hours here on Sunday. I'm just, been looking at this from, hour by hour basis, and it just amazes me how it has morphed over the last 24 hours in particular. And I think it's probably going to be a hurricane very soon, based on what it looks like on the satellite view. So let me just get back to you on the chat board at this time, and give again everybody a big collective hello. Thank you for enduring 2 live streams today. You've got, you got stamina. So let me just, I'm going to scroll back. I'll take some of your questions. And again, all my regulars are here. And as I said, it is a rough day in the weather department. The Euro ensembles did shift to the west. I just saw the message and then it disappeared. So I don't know if you retracted it. I guess maybe you did. But no, I did acknowledge. I'm sorry. I'm just getting to it now. But yeah, we did see a shift to the west. I assume it was Daniel Dust that put that up with regards to the European. It actually what's happening is that the European is slower, with respect to Jose anyway. The European is slower with bringing it up the coast. So Jose winds up catching that big ridge that's building, and therefore, it doesn't get as far out to the east as the GFS, which is about 12 hours faster. So the GFS, it has more time to get out to about 67 or 65 west, and then starts the loop. But even the GFS loops it further, starts the looping process further west than it did in the prior 2 runs. So it may play catch up today, assuming the models continue that particular trend. Oh, there you go, Daniel Dust. I see it. Ensemble shifted further west with CMC holding on to the Florida hit with Maria. Again, it's going to depend on Jose, the remnant trough with Jose, which is dependent on the remnant trough of Irma. And it all goes back to Hurricane Irma. It's amazing. When they write the history of this, they may be writing those 3 storms together as being linked. Because of what Irma, has done. Yes, and it is absolutely imperative, of course. Now, again, one thing I want to bring up with respect to Jose, this is not going to be a hurricane hit, for the Northeast. This is going to behave very much like a nor'easter. So that's I emphasized that on my prior live stream. It's going to impact mainly the immediate coastal areas of New Jersey, Long Island, southern New England, and southeastern New England. If you go north and west of New York City, you're not going to see very much. And if you go maybe a little further north and west of New York City, you wouldn't even know that it was there. So just want to point that out. Let me just see. Corey Bodzach. I think I got it right this time. Will this be the second or third hurricane to hit Barbados? I don't think Irma didn't go over Barbados. and neither did Jose. Did not. I don't think Irma went over Barbados. No, it went north of Barbados. The island has not didn't experience a direct hit from Irma. Just to be clear, let's see. There seems to be a trough near New Orleans when Maria gets next to Florida. Why won't that trough draw Maria west? Scott, the trough that's in the Gulf of Mexico will help it to turn more toward the north, assuming that the trough stays in that one position. But if the trough is, either weakening or perhaps if the trough is retrograding westward, that could open the door for Maria to go into the Gulf. I'm not ruling that out, by the way. I think there's too much. The odds would favor, I think, that it will turn up east of Florida because of what we've seen with Irma, even though Irma did wind up going on the west coast of Florida. But there seems to be something that made Irma start to make that turn so that it didn't get out deep into the Gulf of Mexico. Jose made that turn, and I think the odds might favor Maria doing it, but I certainly wouldn't rule out a setup. If there's no troughing from Jose, if Jose is out of the way, the ridge might be stronger, and that could push it into the Gulf. Barbuda, I'm sorry. Okay, Mark Carroll, Barbuda. This will be this could possibly be the second hurricane to go directly over the island of Barbuda. That is a possibility. Yes. The remnants of Harvey might have slightly affected the track of Irma. Well, you know what? It's quite possible. I got to go back now. I'm just trying to recall. Harvey did wind up going northeastward and passing through here just as Irma was moving westward. So I'll have to go back and review the maps. But you know what? Nothing would surprise me. This has been a very strange 4 weeks, believe me. I know, Corey, I'm sorry. I know you put the pronunciation up. If you could put it up again, I would really appreciate it. I'm almost 60 and I'm like, my mind is fried after doing all these live streams. Should people in the Northeast be nervous of Maria long term? Hosea, right now people in the Northeast are looking at Jose, and that's what they should be looking at. Okay, honestly, you start looking at too many storms. I'm not even thinking about Maria yet with regards to the East Coast. There's too much of a short-term problem with huge short-term issue regarding the Leeward Islands, Puerto Rico, and the Dominican Republic. And with Jose along the East Coast, that is Badziak. Okay, I got it. Did I get it, Corey? Badziak. Fingers crossed. I will try and remember. And please correct me every time I get it wrong until it sinks into my very jelly-like brain. Raymond, does that include Raymond's? I know, Raymond, you're in upstate New York. You got to, you're going to get snow belt stuff. This is kind of tough for you. No, I don't think there's going to be impact from Jose that far north. At least that's the way it looks, because this is not going to be something that's actually moving inland, unless, of course, we'll start to pull up the NAM and see something different. And we're going to do that, by the way, in just a second. I'm going to pull up the new NAM because it's on its way out now. So many variables make Maria very unreliable for the long-term hit for the East Coast. Check back in 4 or 5 days. Yeah, I mean, Daniel, I think that's a good point. There are too many variables, and there's too many variables in every single storm that we deal with in the day 4, day 5 period. But even beyond that, the day 4, day 5 period only brings it down to the southeastern Bahamas anyway. So it's right after that we start to get a lot of model variability, and that is certainly going to be front and center in a couple of days. But yeah, right now it's just kind of pointless I'm not in any position to tell you to even answer that question yes or no. Hello, K-Dog, and hi, Patricia Owens, by the way. Mark Carroll, the models are too far out, but they show a Fujiwara effect of Jose and Maria. Well, they don't crash into each other, but it is a Fujiwara. They rotate around each other. If get an old toy top, get 2 of them and spin them at the same time, and as they go together, you'll see that they'll kind of bounce off each other because of the forces that each one of them produces in their spinning, and that is pretty much what's happening here. That's if Jose drops far enough south. In reality, it's going to be acting, if it winds up looping and kind of just decaying as a remnant cyclone near areas near New Jersey or wherever that that particular area, it will create a trough that Maria could respond to, and that trough extends far enough south. Daniel Dust, Navgem seems to be further south. With which one? With Maria, I'm assuming. Hosea, have we ever seen a Fujiwara effect? Oh yeah, it has happened from time to time. There have been several cases over the years where we've seen that in the Atlantic. Sure, it goes on. Usually one system is more dominant than the other. We had it to some degree last year with Matthew and Nicole, as I remember correctly. So it does happen. Okay, so the Navgem was further south with Maria. So okay, that's the Navgem. I don't look at it. I look at it very rarely, but somebody that was following it said it did do a halfway decent job with Maria toward the end of its track, but didn't comment on how it did in the early stages. And hello to Dio, who's here. Those of you that are watching from the islands, I hope I hope you guys get the information is getting to you about the fact that Maria could be a major hurricane. John D'Angelo is flying with his daughter to Bermuda on Thursday and returning on Sunday. Any concerns? Well, you'll probably, you'll have Jose to your north or northwest. You'll have Maria well to your south. So other than your ocean being kicked up a little bit with some good wave action, I would say no, you probably don't have any concerns in either case. Sunday, I'm not sure where Maria is going to be at that point, but if it's off the southeast coast or getting into the in the Bahamas, eastern Bahamas or northern Bahamas, I still think you're okay in Bermuda at that particular juncture. Okay, so let me just pull the NAM up and take a look at. We can do a little Jose in here, just like I did a little Maria in the other one. Let me move this up to the top here so you can see it. And we'll make it just a little bit bigger for you. Okay. I hope everybody is okay with what I've been doing here, what I've done here with the format and putting everything in the boxes up front. I seem to be making a few mistakes with it, so that's a good thing. And let me get tight. And let's make sure that I have the correct run, which it looks like I might. Now, I don't know. It may not go far enough yet because it's still in the process of coming in. So we only have out to 36 hours, which is going to take us to Sunday evening. And that's the last frame you see here. So why don't we do some comparisons here? This is the new 36-hour. This is the 36-hour from the run prior to this. All right, so this is the old 36-hour. Had it roughly at, let's look at the last, so 34.5 and 73. So everybody remember that, 34.5 and 73. The new run is roughly 35 and 73. So it's about 30 miles further north, so it's a touch faster through 36 hours. It's after 36 hours on the last two runs. Let's go back. I want to go back one more. So let's go back to yesterday's run, where at this point it had it at 34 and 71.5. So that was from yesterday, and here is today. Much further to the west today on the new run. So at roughly a degree further to the west. So 34 and 72.5. Oh, that's the new 42-hour also, which is good. So we've got a couple of new. That's the 6Z. And I'm sorry, now to the new run. So it looks like it's a little shade north or slightly northeast of the prior position. So it looks like on the 36-hour, roughly about 70. 72.3, 35 and 72.3. It's hard for me to center that arrow. So look, 35.72, roughly right about there. So it might be a shade faster, but that they're very close. They're relatively close. Again, the outcome for Jose, as far as anything consequential weather-wise, is going to be for south. If it's going to be anywhere, it's southeastern New England, Long Island, coastal Connecticut, coastal New Jersey, east of the Garden State Parkway, and right on the immediate New Jersey shore, with some rain and gales and maybe some coastal flooding and beach erosion over a series of several days. You go north and west of there, there's going to be very, very little. So if you want more on Jose, again, I cut a video live. We did a video live stream about earlier this morning. That is out there for you on the video library, so you can check with that. And that's all, virtually all Jose. And we dedicated all of this with respect to Maria. So I hope that helped out by keeping them separate. Delvin is here today. Okay, so you know what? You might get some fringe stuff from this, and Jose's going to behave like a nor'easter, and I said that on the other video, so I want to make sure that message gets out. Myrtle Beach for Amber Dixon, Wednesday through Sunday. I think you're fine, but make sure you pay attention to the forecast as you get toward the weekend with regards to Maria. Time to go fishing, Sean. That is absolutely right. I've been at it since 4 a.m. this morning with the weather posts and a few other things. So it's time to relax. Tropical Storm Lee, Hosea is still, it's barely moved. It's only moving at about 6 miles an hour. It's still south and west of the Cabo Verde Islands. Its top winds are only 40 miles an hour. It's a very sheared-looking tropical storm. Conditions in the tropical Atlantic are rapidly becoming unfavorable for development in that part of the Atlantic. There's strong wind shear that's going to be developing soon, and that's going to take Lee and either keep it very, very weak or just completely rip it apart. Steve Addy, it would really help to have a date and clock on the video. Okay, I have to figure out how to do that. You're talking about when you go on to play to do the replay. Let me figure out how to do that if there's a setting somewhere in here for me to put that on. Amber Dixon, you've been obsessed with watching my video since Irma came up. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Corey's on. Check out this app. It's called Windy. It animates the Euro and GFS and NAM on your phone. It's really good. Okay, Corey, I'm going to Corey Bodziak. As I'm getting close, did I remember? I got to go back. I didn't go to look at the pronunciation you put up earlier, Corey. Where is it? Bodziak. I think I got it. Okay. Ventusky is very similar to Windy. I'm going to take a look at Ventusky. I said I was going to try to see if I can get it on here and stream it. Thanks, Corey. Now, it's all I got to do now is to remember it, and that's the tough part. I just wanted to check if my buddy Regal was on here, and he's not on here yet. Okay, so let me leave it here. Patricia Owens, you've got loved ones on Long Island, and you love Jones Beach. A beautiful beach it is. It's one of the prettiest beaches around, by the way. If anybody's ever never been up here in the New York area in the summertime, you should. Jones Beach is just huge. It's amazing. People don't realize what a gorgeous beach they have just very close to New York City. And, of course, there's Robert Moses, which is about 25 miles to the east of Jones Beach, which is equally beautiful. And I actually may take a ride down there. I did go out and see some of the action on the wave action on the South Shore and the Great South in the Mauritius Bay, and it was pretty rough yesterday. I was not that I was surprised so much, but I think when I saw it and it kind of struck me. So I'm going to go take a look at that again today because the surf up here is going to be very rough here for the next number of days. And thank you, John D'Angelo, for being here. I really appreciate the kind words. Okay, for those of you who have hit Super Chat along the way, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And I will I'm going to take a break because I've been at it, like I said, since 4 a.m. So I'm going to take a little bit of a break. We'll come back to this later this afternoon or this evening. I'm going to try to do a little bit of fishing and a little bit of relaxing because this stuff does get stressful for a while, after a while. All right, so have a great day, and we'll talk to you later.